Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're going to be discussing Lil E-Mac from the Denver Lane Bloods, who would take the life of a 9-4 Hoover member's mother. Now, the war between the Hoovers and the Denver Lanes has been going on for decades, but by late 2000s, it would only get worse. Multiple murders had taken place on both sides between both Hoovers and the Denver Lanes. And anytime there's a war, there's always the innocent civilians who can and will get caught in the crossfire. Now, Lil E-Mac, born Brian James, will be one of the young Denver Lane Bloods who would carry out a violent hit. Now, Lil E-Mac is part of the Mac family generation, starting off with Big E-Mac, Lil E-Mac, Tiny E-Mac, and Baby E-Mac. Now, in November, a group of Denver Lane Bloods would try to rob a wholesale shoe store, but before they can get away, the police would arrive. Now, only 2 members will be arrested, and that was Lil E-Mac and Tiny D-Bone. Now, while being interrogated, Lil E-Mac will be asked about who else was with him at that store. He would then be shown some photos, and the police would ask him about Tiny E-Mac. In some way, somehow, the police will get Lil E-Mac to call Tiny E-Mac on the phone to turn himself in. This attempt to get Tiny E-Mac to turn himself in would fail. Now, Lil E-Mac would spend some time down in county, but once he got released, the word was already out that he tried to get his homie, Lil E-Mac, arrested by turning himself in, and this would lead him to getting a DP from the hood. Now, Lil E-Mac would lose a lot of cool points with a lot of homies from the hood, and now it seemed that he had to prove himself. On December 5th, Kool-Aid from 9-4 Hoover was walking down on 102nd Street when a champagne-colored Infiniti drove by. Now, inside that car was Big E-Mac from the Denver Lanes. Now, as he drove by, he would yell out the windows, "This Denver Lanes." Now, little did Kool-Aid know that he was now a marked man by the Denver Lane Bloods. Now, only a few days later, a woman named Stephanie Simpson and her 2 daughters, Bree and her stepdaughter named Shay, would visit her son, Kool-Aid from 9-4 Hoover, at his home, which he shared with his girlfriend, located in the 107 Hoover's territory. Now, Stephanie had just made her son a cheesecake that she wanted to deliver to drop off to him and his girlfriend. Now, once she arrived to his house, Kool-Aid and his girlfriend will come outside to greet her at the car. Now, not far from this area, a group of Denver Lanes were getting suited up, preparing to head down to 102nd. Big E-Mac, Lil E-Mac, Shady, Bad Mike, and KG. Now, they were well aware that Kool-Aid stayed on 102nd, and they planned on taking his life that night. Now, the homies decided that once they found Kool-Aid from 9-4, that Lil E-Mac would be the shooter. Now, back on 102nd Street, Kool-Aid and his girlfriend were still standing outside talking to his mother, Stephanie Simpson, while she sat inside the car. Now, Kool-Aid would then ask his mom could she give him a ride to the nearby gas station, and she would agree. Now, as Kool-Aid and his girlfriend are getting into the backseat of the car, Bad Mike's champagne-colored Infiniti will come flying down the street, nearly hitting Kool-Aid's girlfriend as he tried to get into the car. Now, neither Stephanie or Kool-Aid thought too much of this, and they continued on their way down to the gas station. Now, while driving, the Denver Lane Bloods would pull up behind them, but once Stephanie turned into the gas station, they will continue to drive. Now, once parked, Kool-Aid would get out the car, run inside and grab a couple snacks, and then head back out. His mother, Stephanie, would then start to head back onto the road to take them back home. Now, while driving, the Denver Lane Bloods can be spotted tailgating very close behind Stephanie's car with their high beams on. Now, Stephanie would continue driving until he got back in front of Kool-Aid's house, and she would park the car. Now, she would tell everybody not to look because she believed it was the police straight behind them. And that's when the Denver Lanes would slowly pull up on the side, and Lil E-Mac would roll down the window, and he would aim a 9mm out and open fire. He would let off multiple shots, and Stephanie would be hit multiple times, including her daughters. Now, Kool-Aid would manage to get out of the passenger side to avoid gunfire, and his girlfriend was able to duck down in the seat also to avoid being shot. Now, once the smoke cleared, the Denver Lanes would pull off. As Kool-Aid ran back up to the car, his mother, Stephanie, had been struck multiple times with one shot to the neck. Both his sisters had also been hit. Now, Kool-Aid would immediately call 911, who would arrive shortly on scene along with the EMTs. His mother, Stephanie, along with his sisters, were transported to the Harbor UCLA Medical Center. Now, both daughters, Shay and Bree, would survive their injuries, but Shay would suffer partial paralysis on her left side. Now, Kool-Aid, while waiting on an update on his mother, would call his stepfather, Ronald, to tell him what happened. But before Ronald could even get up to the hospital, sadly, 37-year-old Stephanie Simpson would be pronounced dead. Now back at the scene, the police would start to begin their investigation, along with finding 10 casings from a 9mm handgun. Now hours later, by the time sunrise hit, the detectives would start to interview Kool-Aid from 9-4 at the hospital. Now Kool-Aid would tell police that there were 3 or 4 black men inside a tan champagne 1990s Affinity or a Nissan. Now Kool-Aid would tell officers that it sounded like only one gun that had been fired the entire time. The detectives then would show a photo lineup which included a photo of Eric Pius, aka Big E-Mac from the Denver Lanes. Now Kool-Aid would say that E-Mac was the same dude that he saw 2 days ago that banged on him, yelling out Denver Lanes from that same exact car that was there last night during the shooting of his mother. But he would go on to tell officers that he did not think that E-Mac was involved with his mother's murder. Now eventually, Killer Gum from Denver Lanes would be arrested on robbery charges. Now while awaiting trial, in 2009, Killer Gum will be transferred from Wayside and be placed in a cell with baby Batmite. Now little did he know, his entire conversation would be recorded. Now during this conversation, Killer Gum would tell baby Batmite about the shooting on 102nd Street. On Lanes, I take Lil E-Mac, Big E-Mac, Batmite, and Shady, all in Bat Bar. They all in on this blood. On Lanes, we go on 102nd. I say Boulay from Hoover out there, and I was all ready to do it on Lanes, but the homies wanted Lil E-Mac to handle it. On Lanes, they gave blood to Burner, and this nigga wanted Lady Menlo to dry blood. On Lanes, I'm like, hell no, blood. On Lanes, get in the bar and go over there. On Lanes, do our stuff. Now the nigga Boulay from Hoover was sitting in the back seat of the passenger. It's his blood mama and sister in the car also, fucked up on Lanes. We pull up right beside her, stop, boom, blood light up the bar. This nigga shooting on Lanes, he's sparking the bar up on Lanes. All you hear is screaming and shit on Lanes. He don't even get blood. Killed Blood's mama, and she got hit in the neck on Blood's, and the 2 sisters got hit. Now by 2010, Killer Gum would be sentenced for that robbery charge, but right after that, he would be charged with murder and 3 counts of attempted murder of the death of Stephanie Simpson. Now by May of 2011, Lil E-Mac would also be arrested, and he would be charged with murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. Now during trial, the prosecution would call Kool-Aid from 9-4 Hoover to testify. But once he got on the witness stand, Kool-Aid would deny making any statements to the police. He would also deny being a member of the Hoovers and denying knowing about any of their enemies. Now multiple other people will get up there and testify, but by the end of the trial, both Lil E-Mac and KG would be found guilty of first-degree murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. Now Lil E-Mac will be sentenced to 236 years to life in prison, and KG will be sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. I would like to thank everybody for tapping in, and I'll see y'all next time.